Master All Rats. I'm here to examine a game between TerryMalloy and HematiteBrown, played at ICC in Team 4545 League, and this was elected Game of the Week for Week 3. It's a pretty interesting game. One could spend 5 hours analyzing this game. I'll just get to the nitty-gritty and try to show the main lines. I'm a former Najdorf player myself. I abandoned it back in the 80s, and it was refreshing to see one of the lines that's lesser analyzed. It still remains booked for a while. I've covered some variations of the Najdorf already on Team 45 League videos, but it appeared to follow a theory for a few moves. I'm not going to really discuss all the options. That's up to you guys. But if you're going to play this line, you really have to know stuff. And it seems like the black strategy is fine. He's trying to undermine the white pawns here so that he can get control of E5. That's what it seems like. And both players are moving quickly. We can see we have black gaining time on the clock. So they're both pretty much playing out of the book, and this is kind of an interesting maneuver. Black wants to redeploy the queen to the queen side, so possibly conduct operations against the enemy king, and this will happen in a little bit. And both sides are doing what they're supposed to do, develop their pieces. Now here, I thought White's choice was not the correct one. White's giving control of E5 away, but then Black doesn't do anything with it. I don't really see things strategically wrong with taking with the G pawn. The fact there's an open file just means there's an open file. That's what it means. I don't think either side's gonna penetrate on it, but necessarily. But queen takes is certainly very tactical and playable. It has an immediate threat on the F7 pawn, so Black needs to get busy, and he starts generating some counterplay against the white castle position, and White covers the fact that Black wanted to bust open his pawn structure. And here's what Mr. Aaron Nxd4 would say is a mysterious rook move. Okay, I think Nxd4 was the one that coined that. I don't remember. Maybe you do. What is the rook doing there? Well, I guess it's indirectly guarding F7 somehow, and it's guarding G7. But why do you want your pieces guarding things? Okay, you want your pieces attacking things. Let the other guy have his pieces guard things, right? Black is okay. Let's look at this. Let's see how much time he spent on the move. We spent a long time. Okay, he spent a good 5 minutes. Do I have a better move? Well, we've got this E5 square. Okay, let's go back to that. Let's just analyze a little bit. If he takes, just undermine F7. Okay, now Black has given up a pawn. Okay, fine, but the white queen is somewhat out of play. What can Black do now? Well, Black can stick a rook on the F file and penetrate to the 7th rank. Black's got a couple bishops on the board. It would seem to me that Black has some activity for the sacrifice pawn, because that's what you want. You want piece activity. You know, the pawn will count later in the ending. If you're playing for a win with Black, you know, this isn't forced. I'm just setting it up on the board. If you're playing for a win for Black, you know, activate your pieces. You know, rook on the 7th attack. Now it's attacking a bishop. Black's doing okay here, right? You know, you could say, well, White's a pawn ahead. Well, yeah, but you got to get to the ending to win with that pawn ahead. You're not going to win a pawn ahead out of the middle game, right? So sometimes when all else fails, play actively and put the pressure on your opponent. Make your opponent find the way to handle this. If you put pressure on your opponent, anything can happen. And I've discovered this more and more when you just looking at these league games and so forth. You know that activity is ultimate. Okay, it's the ultimate goal. You have activity, you have chances, and when you don't have activity, you give your opponent an easy game to play. Then you're just basically asking for it, because particularly if he's a stronger player. Now here we have near equal ratings, so we can call this a toss-up. But anyway, let's just go back to this. It just seems odd, and White's putting pressure on d6. So now maybe Black has the right idea. Well, I'll give up that pawn. Well, why wasn't he willing to give up his f pawn? And would White take it? I don't know. It just seemed an odd move. Okay. So Black's getting some activity, and this next move's kind of surprising, but it has a purpose. Okay, White sacrifices Black sacrifices the knight, and White pretty much needs to accept. But now here's the basic idea of it. The White queen must abandon protection of the rook, so Black picks up the exchange, or the quality as it's known in Europe. So it looks like Black's really getting somewhere here. The one drawback in the Black position is this little mess he's in over here on the king side, with his pieces all tied up. But hey, we can figure this out. And now look, now the other rook runs over there. I mean, two rooks having to go over there to defend keep that bishop safe. It seems like kind of a high price to pay, but they're taking their time. So and the outcome still is in doubt. White has 5 pawns, so does Black. If White's going to survive this, he needs to win a couple pawns back. Okay, and there's one for the taking right now, so there's one out of the way. And Black starts redeploying, and now we kind of get a little bit of a repetition here. But I admire Black for deciding to play for a win. Maybe White would have taken a draw. But like I say, you have to admire Black for wanting to try for a win. But unfortunately, Black's kind of running low on time. See, one drawback with 4545 time control is it doesn't really match a real tournament time control, where you're going to get an average of 3 minutes a move. You get an average of about 2 minutes a move in Team 45 League. Just making a note of that. So what I'm saying is, normally, if this was a real tournament game, both players they may have played different moves, but if they're playing at this pace they're playing at, usually they have about a half hour, 40 minutes left on their clock at this point in the game, because if you have 2 hours for your first 40 moves, and if you're moving steadily at a 3 minute per move pace, at move 30 you have a half an hour left. Now that's a substantial amount of time. And then what happens when move 40 kicks in, usually you get another hour. And the way they're running tournaments now pretty much is you have to finish the game in 1 hour. A sudden death time control kicks in. So theoretically, if this was in an over-the-board game at a real live event, Black would have approximately an hour and a half on his clock right now, assuming he can make time control at move 40. And that should be enough to find the correct plan. But with 45 League, there's no secondary time control. There's no extra hour of time thrown on it when you reach move 40. Black is basically playing 7 minute time control with a 45 second increment. And if he uses up all of his time, he's playing off the increment. And as I was saying, a normal tournament game gives you an average of about 3 minutes a move, and Black is going to be down to having to play every 45 seconds. So time is a big factor in this league. But anyway, White gets his second pawn back, and I think Black had the right idea to do this, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Okay, it's good for White to get rid of that bishop. That bishop could have been a killer for Black. But here's the critical point of the game. the game is still relatively even, but I think if anyone has winning chances, it's black. Okay, and I think this is the wrong path right here, H5. Okay, experience will show that black wins a lot of these endings if you can liquidate to the right one. So, for instance, if black can trade the bishops and trade the rook, trade one set of rooks, he should win this ending because the rook is going to be able to outduel the knight. The rook's a long-range piece, the knight's a long-range piece. So, other possible endings. If white trades, I'm sorry, if black needs to trade a set of rooks, okay? But then, if he trades the bishop for the knight, there's a good chance the rook will beat the bishop too. Case in point, I've talked about this recently in some of these videos. If you look at the final game of the World Championship match back in 1972, Fischer defeated Spassky. The final position of the game, Fischer was up in exchange. Spassky had two connected pawns. I think they might have even been passed, if I recall, and a bishop on the board. But it was a theoretically lost game, and he resigned it without resuming. So I think black has every reason to be optimistic about playing for win, but H5 is totally the wrong move. This can be a handy pawn. White's not threatening to take it by any means or way, shape, and form. So what should black do here? Well, that's what I'm going to try to say. And here's the critter that let me get rid of the arrow, and so I just have one arrow. Okay. Here's the critter, the one that made that mysterious rook move way back when. It has a natural move to play. See, which fits with everything that I'm saying in the theme. And this is the move. I mean, we all know, for watching this video, know anything about chess, we know to double rooks because doubled rooks are powerful. So, since white wasn't threatening to win that pawn, why move it? Why break things open? Maybe if somehow we can win this h pawn, these two pawns here are very weak for white. And with correct maneuvering, black can eventually probably win one of them, and then the game's over. So, but the key is you have to win this pawn first on h2. But like for instance, what can white do? Well, if he moves his rook, and I'm just giving an example. Here comes the check, and then there comes another check. So, and now it's game over. You're winning a piece. So white has to step very carefully here. He can't send the rook off the 7th rank. Oops, went too far back. Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, let's try this move. Okay, knight d5. The purpose of this is you want to try to get rid of that bishop. Well, black's still going to play rook f2. Now, on this check, king c7, and black's bishop on d7 is safe because the rook on d2 is pinned. So white could go back theoretically, but then black has king b8 at his disposal. And the point is, black is now forcing an exchange of the rook, and he's getting closer to his goal. So if black opts or white opts to take this, he runs into this problem again. White has a choice. Does he want to play rook f2 and win the bishop, or does he want to play king takes on d7? So black doubling his rooks really puts some heat on white. It might be that if white decides he's going to lose these endings, he may have to play a move like knight d1, and this is exactly what black wants. Okay, white is deactivating his game, and now suddenly the black pieces are going to really spring to life here, so to speak. Bishop g4. Now let's go back and try white being aggressive. You know, there's this one target. Well, let's liquidate. And here you have to take with the king, because if you don't, if you take with the rook, well, here I'll show you. If you take with the rook, here comes this check, and white has to toss his rook in between, and black makes an exchange and picks up a piece. Whoops, there goes the game. So white just can't afford to get aggressive, and let's see, white could try knight e3, but then, you know, black's getting closer to his objective, to trading off some of the pieces and taking his chances on winning with rook versus knight. No, you know, maybe white still has some chances. You know, it's not over yet. The opera isn't over until the fat lady sings, I guess they say. Here black has or white's disrupted communication of the rooks, but maybe now is a time to play h5. Black could even maybe consider rook d8. You know, this kind of goes beyond the scope of all of the possibilities here. You know, if the black player picks this up, or anyone who's trying to improve their ending, you can set this up and analyze it. You know, the PGNs are always included in the YouTube description, so you can put it up on your computer easily enough and play with this. Here, rook d8. The idea is we'll give up a pawn because we're going to get one back, we figure. And you know, see here, check. Now the white king starts getting active, but there's a tempo on the knight. I think black has tremendous winning chances here. Of course, white could put his king on c3 and keep b2 under cover, but I think black has all the play here, and white's the one fighting for a draw. And in pure theory, it could be that that black wins this. Okay, so all that aside, my judgment is black probably has a theoretically won game here, but he went on the wrong path. Ch5 doesn't really help. What's going to happen as a result of black's strategy is that the white king is going to come into play, and here we'll see. And here black's making one of the moves I was suggesting, but then the white knight got a little more active, and here comes the white king up the board. And black you know, another strategy I suggested, but there's a big problem with this as compared to the other positions I was showing. White's getting his pieces in the game, and the two moves wasted with h5 and h4 are going to cost black. Now he's getting some trades, but there's a big difference now. Black's now down a pawn. There's actually another big difference. Black's down a pawn, and the white king is active. And the white king is going to get more active. And he goes to get his pawn back, but look at that king. You know, big deal. You got the king, you got the pawn back, but this is quite a contrast from the other positions that I was showing black could have achieved that would have gone into a similar ending. And this is where black has tried but didn't anticipate or evaluate correctly. Anyway, there's the knight occupying that f5 square. Now it's useful. It's securing that pawn on h4. Good chance the game's still... let me rephrase that. I think the game is probably closer to a draw now than I think black's winning chances have evaporated. Black shouldn't lose this, but finding a way to hold this is going to be a long, meticulous process. Basically, black's posted pretty well. The rook's aggressive. It's tying the knight down to guarding the pawn on h4. This would be a good time to just punt and play rook f7. This keeps white out of the 7th rank and make white prove something. But you know, maybe white has some play. Plays e6 or e5. He's threatening e6. You know, it's going to require. Well, no, he can't play e5. It hangs the knight. Okay, you know, me and my one movers. But anyway, I don't think black has as many winning chances now as he did, but maybe he still has some. He does play rook f7, but then the king comes into e5. But why go back? Okay, what was white threatening? A rook check? Are you worried about the rook check? Yeah, because if the king goes to e8, there's a knight check here. See, this is the problem that black ran into because he let the white king get active. Black's kind of having to play a passive defense, and there comes the 7th rank. Now the king gets, the black king gets deflected away from the queening square. This is critical. And look at that white king; it's just a monster. And black starts chasing pawns, but white just regroups, and white's probably got, now it seems just a few short moves, white's got the better position. Black's the one fighting for a draw. And we should all know, don't let the other guy's king get active. And when black went into this line with the slow h6, h5, h4 move, white had time to activate his king. He didn't in my line. Anyway, let's see. Why isn't it advancing? Because I have internet lag, maybe. No. Now black decides to send his king to try to help collect those pawns on the queen side. But look at that white king; he's just dominating, and the pawn's getting very dangerous. And he takes advantage of a pin to win one pawn back. But then white has a nice trick here, knight e5, and this is going to force a queen on the board. Okay, and there we have it. Now we reach a new interesting theoretical position. White's the one with all the winning chances. Black is definitely fighting for a draw, and I was saying that a while back, that the best black can try to do is draw. To me, the best black can try to do is get rid of all the pawns, because as it turns out, this knight becomes very powerful, and if black drops the exchange, he's going to go into a theoretically lost game, and that's what's going to happen. We'll see that. But the only option was to try to go for those pawns if you can get them. Okay. And maybe shield the king from checks. Now, can black successfully rid himself of this pawn? Yeah, he can, with check. Boom. And there's a good chance black can draw this. Like I said, black was the one fighting for the draw. Now, this isn't forced, but how does white continue if black plays king a4? You don't want to, you give a discover check, you take a pawn, he takes a pawn, but then this pawn is falling with check. This very could well be a draw, as long as black doesn't somehow get see that knight and queen work together and create some threats. I don't know what the table bases say about that kind of ending. It'd be very interesting. Two rooks against a queen and a knight. Black is the one fighting for the draw, right? Who knows? But that was black's best chance, because what happens, he goes for the pawn this way, and he's going to run into trouble. Here comes the check anyway. And he gets rid of both pawns, but unfortunately, this allows white a devastating check. And black must lose a rook. And now we reach a position which is known in theory to be a win for a win for white. Now, interesting, my resource on this book is Queen versus Rook or Minor Pieces Endings by Yuri Averbach and others, part of the Averbach Endgame series. And there are very, very few positions that black can hold a draw. and they're beyond the scope of this video. Even if the pawn is as far advanced as the 6th rank, white is usually winning. Well, sometimes black can hold a draw, but each position is different. But I'll essentially, even if you have, say the white king is on C. Well, let me put it. I'm gonna do this. No, I'm not gonna reset the board. Let me just kind of draw a diagram here. Okay, imagine a black pawn here and a rook here, black rook here, and the white king is here. Okay, now the white king's cut off from advancing past, but the winning technique is that white places black in some kind of a Zugzwang and forces the rook to abandon the square. And you do that by driving the white king to d5, and then you kind of stalemate the king and make the king run. Now it's easier. You'd have to play over all these positions, and they're well beyond the scope of this video. But if you do any research on these endings, that's essentially the winning technique. The queen will end up coming from behind and eventually will win the pawn. And these are very rare. I've had this ending one time. I was on the wrong side of it, and I thought I could hold a draw, and I couldn't. And the guy had to figure out how to win, and he did. And it was years ago. But suffice it to say, the game is theoretically winning for white. Now, whether he does it the most economical way, I don't know. Let's just take a look. White's the one with all the winning chances here, and black is pretty much living on close to his increment. White's playing on his increment too. But eventually that pawn, once that pawn falls, the game over. And whether white did it the right way or the wrong way, I'm not gonna elaborate on it. I'm not gonna just kind of run through the moves here. And now the pawn is vulnerable, but it's guardable. White's going to have to activate his king, and he will. See, it's starting to take squares away. Now, it might have been, let's see. My first question was it a mistake to advance that pawn? And the answer is no, it wasn't, because white has put black in a Zugzwang here. Notice the black king has no move. Well, he can go to. He can't go to h4 because there's a mate, right? Okay. So black either has to move the pawn or move the rook. So this is the net result of your strategy. If you're on the right side of this, you want to eventually force him in some kind of Zugzwang. And if black moves the rook anywhere, I'm just pointing the rook there. Or in both directions, he's going to drop the pawn, and then the rest is easy. So black is now forced to advance the pawn. Now let's see what happens from there. Whoops, there it went. So now the game is definitely lost. They have a bot on ICC. You can play this ending, queen and king versus king and rook. I think it's supposed to be mate in 27. Last time I fiddled with it. And now it's just a matter of getting the white king closer and forcing the black king back. And when you do that, you win. I got to be careful where you step. You're going to walk into danger here. If the king goes to a light square, there's an immediate fork, so he has to go to g7. But white probably has his choices of wins here. Let's see. Anyway, queen f6 check, and now the king comes closer and game over, game set match. There's two mate threats, and if the rook guards it, there's a mate on the back rank, and black has no clever stalemate trick. He can't sacrifice the rook for stalemate. So what can I say? For the third week in a row, the losing side had winning chances but didn't. And that's chess. You know, the fortunes can change very quickly. White played it very well. Black's combination knight takes c2 could have met with a better finish had he played what I suggested. Let's go back and revisit that. See if there's anything fundamentally wrong with my idea, because I think that gives Black an advantage. Let's see, we're at move 94, and he played h5 at move 32, so that's 62 times 2 half moves. One back 124. That should get us close. Yes, how about that, huh? There it is, h5. Okay. What else can White do? Black is trying to trade stuff. If you move the king back, this is still coming, and this just seems to force a trade and more. Black is going to get on that f2 square with a rook in a moment. We've decided White can't move the rook off the second. If you bring the bishop, no, you can't bring the bishop back. It hangs it. Gee. Okay. This bishop really has no place to move. The only other reasonable alternative was knight d1, and like I say, that just allows bishop g4, and the idea is to play bishop f3 and trade something off. We go back to knight e3, and here White has to trade it. Well, you can give it check. Does that get him anywhere? King c7. There's a knight check on d5. Well, e4 is still under fire. Let me go back to my king b8 idea. Could have played king b8 in the beginning and kept the knight back there. Let's see. Let's try king b8 now. Whoops. Yeah, king b8. Okay. E4 is under some pressure. Okay, if White defends, and there's that word defend, you don't want your pieces defending. If White defends, Black may be able to pile up on that soon enough. Let's see, bishop here. Now, Black doesn't have time to play rook e8 because he's going to walk into this. They can put this rook here. Now, White's getting some activity. Rook e5. Now the rook's pretty much invulnerable there. And once again, the threat is bishop takes. So let's see. Bring the knight back to c3. This might be a defense for a while, but Black's having all the fun here. White's not getting his king active, and White's not getting his, he's got this pawn majority, but it's not going anywhere, right? White's not doing a thing with these pawns. Black is definitely not the worst. This might be White's best chance to try to hold the position, but Black's going to have all the fun here. Slowly improve his position. Maybe b6, king b7, king c6. Try to get the king into play. White, like I say, White's tied down defending. His two minor pieces are defending one pawn. That's just asking for it, asking for disaster. There should be a proper technique to win this for Black, but this might be White's best defense. Anyway, it was definitely a worthy game of the week. It's not White's fault that Black missed his chance. White played it very well. I think Black played it very well. Just a couple of question moves, that mysterious rook move there, and then his plan to play h6 and h5, when just the natural rook f7 could have made White's game very uncomfortable, as some of those variations showed. And this might be the best white can get. Okay, thanks for looking. See you when there's a winner in round 4. Take care.